Hello, welcome back to episode 21 of WCAT Chats. I'm Nathan Raju. Alongside me is Kate Lockerman, and today we have a great episode with WCAT alum and Westminster alum, Jack Hunter. Jack, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's a little early, so I'm waking up, so I apologize if I start stumbling over things or lose my train of thought, but I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you here. So you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about you?
Yeah, so I graduated from Westminster in 2020, so the infamous COVID class. I go to Washington and Lee University now. I'm about to wrap up my junior year. I'm about like 4 weeks away from doing that. And you're probably having me on because in high school I did a lot of WCAT stuff. I commentated a lot. I was behind the desk, weekly news, sports reports, you name it. And yeah, I'm used to telling people that I'm from Atlanta, but that's because of high school. But I guess everybody here is from Atlanta. So yeah.
So going into why you're here in the first place, I mean, like you said, you got a lot of background in commentating, and you've been commentating towards the collegiate level and professional as well. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got it started into sports commentary past the WCAT level?
Yeah, so WCAT gave me a good start. I wouldn't be like kind of where I am now without WCATs for sure. I mean, in ninth grade, I kind of walked in and was like, Mr. Searle, can I do something? And I remember like announcing the second half of a JV football game, and that kind of led to like behind the scenes varsity football and put me on the camera and all that. So when I kind of got to college, like that's something that I knew I wanted to do because of my WCAT experience. And it was a little tough with COVID because they weren't really playing sports at first at the Division III school that I go to. Like Division I, the SEC, they were playing football in that fall, but like they weren't really doing things at where I go to school. So it took a little bit of time, but I was able to kind of start right away because I was pretty polished, had good experience, had a lot of like good practical experience. So that's just kind of how I started. Was freshman year, I just say, hey, I got this commentating experience. Will you let me hop on games? And then it ended up working out to where, like, the next year, the guy at WNL had to announce games, like, left. So they just had all these games that they really needed to be announced. And so, like, I was there, and that was cool for that. And then kind of one thing has just kind of led to another from that.
So how has it been different in college than it was in high school?
I would say it's, like, a little more, like, professional and, like, a business, like, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not, Division III is still fun, like, and it's not like, as like crazy as like being Division I, and that's great in its own ways. And I'm glad that that's been the case. But I think going from the high school to the college level, like you go from like, I'll have a lot of friends on this team. Like, high school football is really fun and WCAT's really fun. And it's kind of like all about learning, getting into it. And now it's like college level is a little bit more like, you got to, like, it's kind of more of a professional atmosphere. I'm like working with a lot more adults and, take things a little more seriously. So I think it's just kind of like a step up in like a professionalism level, I'd say.
So when you're commentating, do you have any challenges that kind of come across to you that you have to really persevere through?
Yeah, I would say the two things are, having like building enough time to prepare, and then like new sports is always like really tough too. The prepare thing, in college you get really busy, you get pulled a lot of different directions, and to be able to like be a really effective broadcaster and commentator, like you got to really put in the time to like prepare. I think one of my favorite sports to do is baseball, and like there's a lot of like downtime in baseball, which I think is great, but you got to have information to fill that downtime. You can't just like sit there and look at the sky the whole time. Finding the time to prepare, finding the time to like talk to coaches and players and kind of get their input on what's going on, and like to really familiarize yourself with not just like the home team, but the away team too. And then new sports is something that's like learning new sports is really challenging. Like even if you know the rules, or if you don't know the rules, that makes it really tough because then you got to learn the rules and then you got to learn the team. So over my college experience, like I've tried to broaden my horizons a little bit. Like I came in, like I knew football, basketball, baseball, and since I've gotten to school, I've like announced volleyball, I've announced soccer, a lot of soccer, even done some water polo. Like these are just things like I'm still trying to like learn more sports, to do more sports, just try to be like as versatile as possible. so that's really challenging too, is because like you got to learn the sports, you got to learn the terminology, and then you also like have to, like when you see it live too, like you can't like blank out too. You got to like know what's happening. So I think those are kind of two big challenges, I'd say.
What's been the most challenging game that you've commentated at WNL?
I would say, like, this sounds kind of funny, but my freshman year during COVID, they would stick, like, so there was like the front row of the press box, and then they would stick me on like a lawn chair in like the front and like the back of the stands, like in front of the press box. And I think that was just hard because like it was nice being out in the sun and everything, and it was really not nice when it started raining outside. But it was kind of hard just like because like the person you're doing the game with is like behind you. And I think that was probably the hardest from like a logistical perspective. I think the hardest games I ever had to do were actually over at VMI, which is a Division I school like across the street from WNL. I started doing some games for them this semester. And I was doing a women's water polo tournament. And like I was really excited about it, but I was also just like terrified because that's something that I didn't really ever watch growing up, and like had to like I was spending hours like watching YouTube videos, like trying to figure out what the rules were, and like and so that was kind of what I talked about like learning new rules, learning the teams and stuff. And there was like 4 games in a row, and so that was probably the most challenging from like a broadcasting perspective was that.
Yeah, water polo I think is actually coming to Westminster next year as well.
Really?
So that'll be interesting.
Well, I feel like I'm somewhat of an expert now after a few weekends ago.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. You have been commentating a little bit with ESPN and made a few appearances there. How'd you get yourself out there? How'd you get involved?
Yeah, I just think I was lucky enough to like know the right people and make a good impression on them. So I took a sports journalism class my sophomore year, so last year because I'm a junior now, and my like assignment was covering VMI sports, and VMI broadcast a lot of their games on ESPN Plus, and I was covering their basketball team, and I was doing a lot of work with their basketball team. And I feel like I did some good work. I had some good interviews and wrote some good things, and so their sports information director was familiar with me and kind of knew me, and so like I kept in touch with him over the last year. I would interview their basketball coach on the radio show that I do at school, and so then when the new year came around, he asked me if I wanted to do sideline reporting for the basketball games on ESPN Plus, and I was all for it. And then kind of I've done sideline reporting for basketball, and then that turned into I've been doing a lot of commentary for their baseball team on ESPN Plus, and then the whole water polo thing too. And so I'm hoping I can continue doing that, and that's just because that's just been such a cool experience.
What's some advice you would give someone younger who's interested in sports reporting, sports broadcasting? How would you say to get themselves out there?
Yeah, I would say you got to want it, and like you got to really like work hard because everybody has like a kid wants to do this. I mean, it's kind of like really like a childhood dream of a lot of people, and a lot of people want to do it. It's really competitive, and so you got to be able to like really want it. And if you really do want it, like it's fun, and it's like I'm not trying to like scare anybody. It's just like you got to want it. You got to really want to do it, and you got to like really jump in there. So like weekends, like nights, you got to like spend a lot of time preparing. So you got to kind of set yourself apart and you got to like really jump into things. And I think WCAT was like a great way of doing that. So like I would say if you're like listening to this and you're in high school here, I mean, I think getting involved in WCAT was like the best thing that ever happened to my broadcasting career, because like I came into school like so much further ahead of like a lot of people who wanted to get into this, and like I think there's like a little bit of like less patience when you get to college, like especially like student radio is like one thing. If you go to school that has student radio, that's one thing. That's like, but like a lot of stuff that I've done is like pretty professional level things. I'm working with like adults and stuff, so like there's not that much room to like kind of play around or like you may have here. So to be able to like do WCAT and like really learn and like get a lot of like the learning pains and like out of the way and get to college, like I'm still getting better, and I still mess up all the time and stuff, but I'm not perfect. But like being able to get to college with a lot of experience and like know how things work and kind of really set me apart, I think. And so I think like that would be the biggest thing, is just like get involved in WCAT. It was great for me.
Yeah, so when you commentate, you obviously want to create like your own style, but have you ever modeled your commentating off of anyone in particular?
Yeah, I listened a lot growing up to the Braves radio. Like I would go to bed and I just like have it on the radio. And I think Jim Powell and Don Sutton were like two guys that I really listened to, that I really admired. And then now Ben Ingram is like somebody that I kind of look up to from an announcing perspective. And I got to like meet him a few times last summer, which is pretty cool. And he's awesome. And I think the thing that I like most about him is like, I mean, he's an entertainer. Like he's a baseball broadcaster. He's like kind of the journalist side of it. But he's an entertainer. I mean, you never know the stories that you're gonna get out of him, and like you can tell he prepares like really well, because you know I never turn on the radio and like get bored of like listening to it. It could be like a 8-0 game or something. I never get bored listening to him. Like he's just, and so I think that's kind of how I try to be, like, especially baseball. You have that room to like incorporate a lot of different stories, whether they're baseball related or not baseball related. So I think being able to just like feel like you're kind of like in the listener's living room is like a good way to put it, I guess. You want to just be very like welcoming and like entertaining, I guess, too.
Yeah, his voice is really iconic. I mean, when you just hear it, you know immediately who it is, and his voice just kind of fills a room. How has commentating sports really impacted you, like maybe personally or even just professionally?
I mean, it's been awesome. Like, you know, it's definitely shaped who I am, because I was kind of talking about, like, they play a lot of sports on weekends and stuff. They play a lot of sports like on nights and stuff. So like that's where I spend a lot of time, is like announcing sports or like preparing to announce sports and stuff. And it's like it's shaped me a lot personally, because like I'm really like driven by it. It was something that like growing up I always thought maybe like I could do, and like high school I got like a good head start into it. And now it's like, you know, between like I'm a journalism major, so between like doing that stuff and between like doing the radio stuff and announcing, and like I stay pretty busy doing it. And like it's awesome, because like it's really cool to like really want to do something and like be like driven by it. And so it's been awesome for me, like personally. I'm just kind of getting to live out something that I've wanted to do. I'm gonna just try to like see how long I can ride with it.
Yeah.
So now I got a quick fire segment about Westminster.
Okay.
So who was your favorite teacher in high school and why?
I mean, this is gonna be tough to be quick, because I'm thinking you're putting me back here. Let's see. Oh, this is really getting in the weeds here. I haven't really thought about this. I'd say that one that comes to mind is Dr. Vigil. I had him as a baseball coach too, so I think but I had him for history junior year, and I feel like that was just a really fun experience. But I love so many teachers of my time at Westminster, though.
So was history your favorite class, or did you have like a favorite subject in particular?
I feel like I was kind of all around. Like there wasn't really one class that I was kind of a huge fan of. I was kind of fans. I was like modest fans of a lot of them. There wasn't one class that I kind of dove headfirst. I think I did love the challenge of like math, though. I don't know why. I wasn't that great at it. I just think I loved the challenge of it, though, because I was not like very naturally gifted at it, I don't think.
What was your most challenging class you took?
Like the hardest one?
Ninth grade history was, I mean, that was, I had missed DE for that class, and it was like, was it history of the like ancient world or something like that? And I remember like, I don't know if y'all still do the Peloponnesian War paper.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I mean I've lived to see the day, and like live to talk about it. But that was, I mean, that class like at that given moment in my like, I mean, that was the toughest class I ever took.
I mean, obviously your senior year was during COVID, but did you have a favorite high school tradition at Westminster?
I loved like Friday night football. Like I have a different vantage point of it doing WCAT for it. So like, but like those were like the nights I really look forward to.
Where's your favorite study spot?
Excuse me?
Favorite study spot?
Study. I mean, I would say like honestly, like I spent a lot of time in the WCAT room. Like the WCAT, the current iteration of it, and Ask You. I spent a little time here. I think that was like a senior year thing. But when I was a freshman, old Campbell Hall. I don't even know if you guys know Campbell. See, I'm not that old yet. That's good. The WCAT your room used to be in the basement there, and I used to spend like a lot of time there. So I say the WCAT room was a great study spot. People kind of leave you alone in here.
Who was like the most influential person in life during high school? Maybe a coach, a teacher?
I would say Mr. Searle, probably. I mean, I spent a lot of time around him, and like I think, it's like crazy work ethic. That's the one thing that jumps off the page. I mean, he's like in 5 different places at once. Good luck trying to track him down. I think though, like, he like in 9th grade, like I don't know what he saw in me or something like that, but I mean, he was like really just like pushing for me to like get on the air and like practice and get opportunities. Like I remember Friday night football games, we'd be playing like Stone Mountain in DeKalb County, and it'd be halftime, and he'd like put on the headset and like just start talking with me about like school or something like that. Like he just gave me like reps on the air, and so like over my high school experience, like it meant a lot to me like personally, but like also from like the WCAT perspective, like he really like was like honest too. Like he just was really like kind of pushing to get better, and I appreciated that greatly.
Mm-hmm.
If you could go back and change one thing about high school, what would it be? I know you graduated COVID year, so that may be it, but is there anything else you would change?
Yeah, I would, I mean, the big thing off the bat is I would love to have not had COVID interrupt my senior year. I had like a pretty cool high school experience, I'd say. I mean, I got to play varsity baseball. It's always what I wanted to do. I got to do WCAT. That's always what I wanted to do. Those were kind of the two things like growing up that I was like, I just want to do that. And I got to do both of them. So I don't really have too many like complaints or one thing that I would change, except for like not being able to like, I mean, we kind of like all joked that day, like, oh, we're not going to ever graduate. And then that to end up like, I mean, we ended up like having like graduation ceremony in like August, but like it's obviously not like the normal commencement. So I think that was probably like the biggest thing.
Well, yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. We had a pleasure listening to you and everything you have to say. I mean, thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank
Just glad
you.
to be back anytime.
Thank you so much, Jack. That was great. Now let's get back over to Westminster current sports. We will start out with baseball. Varsity did clinch second place in the region. They were only behind Holy Innocents, and they had 2 great games against them a couple weeks ago. But last week they swept Druid Hills 11-1 and then 11-4 on Monday. Senior night was also on Monday, so thank you for everyone who came out. It was a great game, and Reed Pemberton, Arjun Pradhan both threw 3 innings with 0 earned runs, and sophomore Jackson Hausner came in the 7th inning and threw a scoreless frame. So overall, great season for the Batcats, and their final game is today on Wednesday away at Lakeside, so good luck to all of them. And if they come out with a win today, they will end the season with 21 wins and only 7 losses, so just great overall season for the Cats.
Boys lacrosse has also been having a good season. They just had their last home game last night. Unfortunately lost to Lambert, but they are a really good team in the state. Their last regular season game is this Thursday at Pace. And girls lacrosse won their senior night last week against Southwest DeKalb with goals from every senior but 2, which is really impressive. And then they have a game today.
And then boys soccer, they did win their game last week, and they have a couple more games up to the season. They're in the state playoffs, so good luck to them. And then the girls soccer, they won their first round of state against Mount Zion Jonesboro, and the girls soccer has been just a bit of a juggernaut all year. So hopefully they can continue that and win another state championship.
Boys and girls tennis are both region champs, and they have both started state. Both won their first round of state. Boys had it Monday, and girls had it yesterday on Tuesday. And next round of state will be next week.
Nice. And then gymnastics, they won their senior night last week, and they beat the 4th-ranked team to win. They moved up to 8th place in the state, and they compete in area today.
Track had senior night last week, and it was just a fun time recognizing and celebrating all the seniors' accomplishments. And I think they did well in that meet, too.
Yep. And then the crew last week, JV8 placed 2nd, only to Baylor's first 8, and they beat soundly the Baylor's 2nd team and 2 other club teams there, too. Their next regatta is in a few weeks, so good luck to them.
Yep.
That's all for Westminster Sports. Thank you guys so much for listening in, and we'll see you guys next week.